Hello chess lovers, Suren here, and in this video I want to take a quick look at a very sharp game played between Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura. This game was played in 2010 at World Blitz Championship. As this was a Blitz game, we will go quickly through the game. In this game, the future world chess champion had white pieces and he opened up with e4, to which Nakamura responded with French defense d4, d5, knight c3, knight f6. Classical variation is on the board, and by locking up the center, we are heading towards the Steinitz variation. Knight goes back on d7, f4, and there we have it. With the standard c5 move, black is undermining white center. Knight f3, knight c6, bishop e3, a6. Black is starting a queenside pawn storm. Queen d2, b5, a3. White intends to capture on b4 with the a pawn in case you play b4. And in here, Nakamura made a very risky and sharp move, and he played g5. This move was first made by Alexander Morozevich in 2005 in a game against Viswanathan Anand, but before this, Carlsen had already faced this line when playing against Lyubomir Lyuboyevich. The game ended in a draw, and like in this game, Carlsen chose f takes g5. This g5 move can be seen very often in the lines of Steinitz variation, with which black is challenging white center from the king side in order to weaken it. But the downside of it is that black is doing it at the cost of weakening his king side. In some cases, black can pay a high price for it. In here, by playing f5, Carlsen could actually create too many problems for his opponent. This is considered to be the strongest continuation, but instead he chose f takes g5. C takes d4, knight takes d4, and in return black is winning white central pawn. Knight takes e5. At the cost of weakening his king side, black managed to get rid of white's powerful center. Bishop d3, bishop b7. Carlsen castled king side, bishop g7, knight ce2, and knight g4. Well, this is a mistake, and instead it was better to play knight c4. And the problem with knight g4 is that this taps into a very strong g6 move, which Carlsen missed. The idea is that if h takes g6, then white can go for knight takes e6. And now if bishop e5 hitting on h2, then this time white can go for rook takes f7, both damaging black's king side further and at the same time freeing the f1 square for the king. Otherwise, if you hurry and win black queen, then black can announce a perpetual check. That's why white should go for rook takes f7, and then if bishop takes h2, then king f1. And yes, in this case already, if king takes f7, then white can win black queen with the check. But Carlsen missed this razor sharp line, and to knight g4 he answered with a more cautious king h1 move. Knight takes e3. Nakamura is removing white's dark squared bishop, which in some cases could be very useful, you know, and now black's dark squared bishop feels very well. Already right now knight f5 can be a threat. That's why Nakamura played queen e7, knight g3, and now white can play rook e1 and then go for knight f5. That's why we see bishop e5, both blocking the e file, and at the same time Nakamura will now come after this pawn on g5, rook g8, h4, h6. All the time Nakamura is managing to find ways of undermining white pawns. In here Carlsen found a very beautiful move, and he played knight gf5. We see a piece sacrifice, and now let's see how all this craziness is going to end up. By the way, I have to tell you that an alternative can be a rook f5. Anyways, in the game we see knight gf5, he takes f5, knight takes f5, queen c5. As black is leading in material, black is eager to exchange the queens, and at this point playing rook e1 is actually good for white. And then after the exchange of queens, threat like knight d6 can appear on the board, but Carlsen hurried with queen takes c5, knight takes c5, knight takes h6, rook h8, bishop goes back on c2, and f6, emphasizing the vulnerability of this knight on h6, rook e1, rook takes h6. Not the strongest continuation. The simple king d7 is actually stronger. And then if needed at any moment black can play knight d4. But instead we see rook takes h6, And at this point actually black is the piece up, right? But Nakamura decided to give up this exchange and play with 2 pieces against the rook. G takes h6, knight e4. But in this case actually white is almost managing to equalize, you know. Against 2 pieces white has a rook and 2 pawns. Here Carlsen played king g1, king e7, rook f5. This rook is hurrying to protect the pawn on h6, rook h8, rook h5, king f7. White rook suddenly appeared on a very awkward square, and it's not like managed to protect this pawn. Now black will win it. Bishop f4, bishop b3, knight d2. We have a double threat, bishop d1 neutralizing both threats, and the pawn on h6 drops. Rook takes h6, bishop takes h6, and at this point Carlsen played bishop c2 and he lost on time. But once you are playing bishop c2, the bishop is no longer controlling the f3 square, and black is winning. And at this point, yes, it was better to keep the bishop on this diagonal and make a move like bishop e2. Black has a slight advantage, but of course still it remains unclear, and still there is a huge fight on the board. But at this point Carlsen blundered and also lost on time. Looks like that line starting with g5 created too many problems for Carlsen, and in the jungle of that complex variations he lost precious minutes. Well, this is it, dear chess lovers. Hope that you enjoyed this interesting game. The game was extremely complex, but all hail to players, because in those complex positions they were pretty accurate. In the end, a chess puzzle for you where the task is to find the winning move for white. It's white to move, and as usual we'll wait for your answer in the comment section. Feel free to check out my early uploads as well. I will see you in my next video. Take care.